Hi, my name's Andy Schmuckler. The title of this video is How Did America Come to This? I think it's important entryway for coming up with good answers to the question, how can America become more healthy, more the way we would like for it to be, more not in the grip of a destructive fascist force like we see on a rampage dismantling American institutions, firing vaccine guys, going after Greenland. What a thing! How did America come to this? I think that I think that I can say with some certainty that if you'd asked Americans back in the post-war generations, however long you want to go, up through even the end of, I'd say, the Clinton years, if you ask them, is it possible that what we see happening now with this Trump presidency could ever happen? Reagan's America, could it ask them, could such a thing happen? I believe that everybody who had any kind of sense about what America was like and how it functioned and such, and I think everybody would say that's way outside the bounds of possibility. So how did it come to this is really a question of should be of interest at least to historians and to social scientists. I mean, this is a transformation, I would say, that something like this, this whole Trump phenomenon should have been possible. I mean, there was a lot of dark stuff going on in the Republican world well before Trump showed. He was a symptom of something, but Trump was the fascist wolf without the sheep's clothing. Until then, all the conduct, you felt that you could take somebody like George W. Bush or Dick Cheney to the dinner table at Thanksgiving, and you wouldn't be sorry that they were there. Not this. How did that happen? So my point being, this was unthinkable. It was unthinkable. I mean, we got further and further into unthinkable when W was president and doing all those terrible things which really should have led to his impeachment. John Dean wrote a book called Worse Than Watergate, because what was going on with the Bush administration, he thought it was worse than Watergate, and he knew Watergate. He had been in prison because of his role as White House counsel to Richard Nixon. He did time in prison. He knew what that scandal was about, and he said that was worse than Watergate. Now we looked back to the scandals he was describing and compare that with what Donald Trump represents, a guy who committed the most serious crimes in American history and managed to defeat the rule of law with the help of the Supreme Court. How did America come to this? Well, I have a sense that it would be useful to understand that the vast culture with its many dimensions is interacting in the realm of causes and effects in such deep and complex ways that it's really hard to say what all these developments do to each other. But I think that I can offer a few important dimensions to the thing, that we got to this point because of changes in the corporate system, changes in family structure, changes in the technology, changes in the distribution of organized political force. That's not a good phrase. What I'm pointing to here is a dimension that's worth talking about, which is that the fascist force came together with as a very well organized, highly intentional, gradual coming together of a sort of fascistic, plutocratic, corporatist force. In which the Koch brothers, for example, played a really super impressive role that provided a lot of the foundation for the work against American democracy and to turn us into something more like what Trump's doing. But then there are these other forces that are at work that are, how things were handled. There is also actually a dimension about the secular worldview being rather incomplete and disabling a lot of people on the other side from fascism from perceiving things in the way that would have been useful to perceive in order for us not to come to this. So there are a lot of different dimensions. I'm going to be developing a series here in which I riff on, think about each of these things that contributed to the way America evolved out of the Eisenhower's America, where this Trumpian thing would have been unthinkable, despite the McCarthyism of the early Eisenhower years. That we got to this point here. This is a time where huge forces at work in a complex civilization, from the coming of social media to the resurgence of white racism, and there's a lot of different dimensions. And if one were to ask, what would the ideal scenario from here be? I think there would be a certain amount of holistic thinking where there was a concerted effort on the part of the society as a whole to address all of these things with a holistic understanding that when things go wrong in one system, that can compound with things going wrong in another system. Like the way I think that some breakdown in family structure helped create an environment where a fascist force, growing out of the money power and out of other dimensions of American brokenness, like white racism, could conspire to turn this country and play on the brokenness of the people who have been raised in families that didn't give them something that would have made them less easily led astray by a fascist propagandistic force, like tens of millions of Americans have. That's a conjecture, by the way, on my part. I don't know that the problems of family structure have made the American people more vulnerable to the kind of manipulation that grew out of this fascist force, that gave us another component, which is the way that force utilized the control over media environments, so that by the time Clinton was president, a huge proportion of the radio dial was right-wing propaganda. there was an intentionality, this purposeful thing that was rising on the right. And that may connect with something called the Powell Memo from 1970. But all these things conspire together, and somehow, between the propagandists and the people who emerge into the world having been made whole and broken in various ways by their upbringing, latch on so that the fascist force is able to enlist those people in supporting something which is telling them lies, which is doing nothing for them, which is just exploiting them in its quest, insatiable quest for more and more power. So I can imagine that we would develop as good an understanding as we can of how did America come to this. And I'll offer in this series best what I got to. But the question is bigger than anything I got my arms around. But I got my arms around enough to say what I imagine the best thing will be is to get the best possible picture of how did America come to this, and then address all of those things. I think we need to change some of the ways in which the market economy works, the corporate economy works. We have seen that as the corporate economy evolves over the generations, it seems inevitably to create industries like the fossil fuel industry and the asbestos industry and the tobacco industry that are willing to kill people for money. Most people won't kill people for money, I don't think. I mean, I can't prove that either. But I would say that every industry that's been put in that position of kill people or give up money has chosen to go for the money in spite of killing people. I don't think that most individuals would do it, but every industry has. And I think that can be explained by the dynamics that are at work in the market economy. My whole life's work is about seeing how systems have a logic of their own. There are some things that get selected for because of the nature of the system. That's what that book is about. And in the economy, there are some things that get attended to, like the things that can be bought and sold between individuals, an atomistic dimension, and it incorporates a lot of power in the hands of those who measure all value in terms of the dollar, because that's how the system operates. And then you end up, whereas in the 1950s, I can't remember, John Kenneth Galbraith, I think, said that there were corporate statesmen, people who took seriously their responsibility to the whole. In the 1950s. How accurate that is, I'm not in a position. Oh, I think it was Robert Reich who said that, corporate statesmen. And now we've got corporations who are not playing a constructive role at a time when America is being dragged over to the dark side. We should have all the power of corporate America that's fattened itself off of this free society, rousing itself to do the right thing. Instead, we get a fossil fuel industry that will do everything it can to block our responding to the greatest crisis humankind has ever faced, climate change, in a responsible way that safeguards the future of our children and grandchildren and future descendants after that. The book, The Illusion of Choice, How the Market Economy Shapes Our Destiny. I believe very strongly in the value of the market, but it has to be embedded in something which corrects for its blind spots. The Illusion of Choice. It's still in print from SUNY Press. But we have a society that has been changing fast in a lot of ways. And those have combined, I believe, in making us vulnerable to this kind of fascist takeover. Broken people, broken economic system, a core of enormous capability that is animated by a lust for power and a lust for wealth that cannot be satiated, a real spiritual breakdown in capitalism, a takeover of a political party by the money power, the selling of souls. It's a multidimensional thing. And all of those dimensions, if they contributed together to bring us to this ugly, dangerous point, they probably should be addressed together to get us away from this ugly, dangerous point. Won't be easy. It's a whole lot easier continuing to be a pretty healthy society than it is to climb your way back from having fallen into this state of decomposition that America has, where there's in the level of thought, in the level of passion, in the level of perception, in the level of whether it's the broken or the whole parts that are being expressed in the world. There's just a whole lot of things that have gone wrong, and it will take dealing with all of them to get to the best possible place for our future. I'm Andy Schmuckler. I'll be back with talking about some of those things like the corporate system and like family structure. Thank you, and bye-bye.